My biggest thing is when I lived with roommates, like other women, it was okay because it was nice. You had like the camaraderie and you were like, oh, can I borrow your shirt for, if we go out? Now the thought of me living with someone else besides my husband, I would rather live at home with my parents.
100%.
I can't do it.
When I was a little kid and we would do like sleepovers, I'd wake up in the morning at 9:00 and be like, get the fuck out.
Wait,
like,
you made it to the next morning?
Right. Yeah, I did make it to the next morning.
Oh, no.
And I'm just like, I hate every minute of you being in my space.
The amount of times I've called my mom at like 11:30 when everyone went to bed being like, Mom, can you pick me up? And she's like, seriously? I used to not do sleepovers because I would wake up at like 1:00 in the morning and then I would be awake and I would sit there in darkness just being like, okay, only 4 more hours till it's daytime and I can have Mom pick me up. And at some points, once I got a cell phone, I was just like, can you pick me up? I want to sleep in my own bed. I even do that now. Jimmy and I went camping like before the pandemic. One, I don't even know why I thought sleeping in a tent was a good idea.
Camping where?
Up in Wisconsin.
Okay.
So it wasn't really that far. Mm-hmm. Everyone went to bed and we laid down and the ground was wet. And I was like, I don't want to be here. And Jim's like, suck it up. We're camping. And I was like, no. And we drove back to the apartment. I made him leave his friends. And
How far in Wisconsin were you?
It was like an hour and a half drive. I drove. Jimmy's like, I can't drive. And I drove us back to my apartment and we slept. God. And then he left the following morning and drove back up there. And then I was like, I'm not going back.
Yeah. You're
I'm good.
I've had enough. Yeah. That's quite all right.
Mm-hmm. I'm like, nope, never again.
Yeah. I've never, besides John, I've never lived with anybody else. So like, I didn't go away to college and I don't think I would like it. Because like I said, I just get out of my space.
I never had to dorm with somebody. Everyone that I lived with in college were friends. But then my roommate in college at the time, she was crazy. And
I remember you talking about that.
She was then she got a boyfriend and then she disappeared. And so I was like, oh, this is nice. I'm living alone. And and then when I lived here, I just can't do it.
Did she like disappear like Natalie Holloway disappeared?
No, she was just living. She was just living with her.
Just checking.
No, she disappeared. Our friendship disappeared. How about that?
There you go. Okay.
Because she was just with her boyfriend all the time. And I'm like, why am I paying this much rent if you're never here? So one day I packed up all of my shit and I just moved out because my name wasn't on the lease. I was like, I'm good.
Yeah.
Bye.
See you later.
So, no.
Hope you're alive somewhere. But
well, she ended up marrying that guy that she was disappearing to. And they've been married. So great. They have kids.
Good.
We don't talk.
Okay.
It's fine.
Yeah.
Anyone that I've lived with outside of Jimmy, I don't talk to anymore. So I don't know what that says about me or the people I chose to live with. But.
I don't know. It crosses some boundaries. I don't know. Like it just now they just know too much, and you're just like, that's okay that I don't talk to you anymore. You just know too much about me.
I also have to live a special way. I have the Eastern European Polish gene, and there's only
people don't understand.
No, people don't get it. And while I know that I can't control everything, I try to, and it's just not a good time. Also, waking up in the middle of the night and being like, oh, there's random people in my apartment that I don't know. I didn't like that either.
No.
So I was like, I'm gonna live alone.
Yeah.
And then I did, and it was lovely.
Yep.
So, all right. So, do you want to get into it?
Yeah, let's do it. Welcome, guys. Welcome to Lap It Like It's Hot with Monica and Melena. So today we are going to recap Long Beach and talk about some highlights, some strategy stuff, some things that happened. Yeah.
Yeah. And then we have a fun little extra part of the episode later that we're excited to talk about as well. So Long Beach finished about a couple of days ago. So we're going to talk a little bit about just the race in general. I think it was while it was a green race, it was actually pretty entertaining to watch.
It was I think just the environment, and there was a ton of fans, very fan centered again. I mean, that's what the IndyCar usually is,
Yeah.
coming back from thermal, like all the backlash from that. So now we're just back to our regularly scheduled program.
Yeah, it looked like when you looked at the stands, even Friday during practice, it looked like race day, which was really exciting.
So I had a question. So like IMSA was also the same time. So was it just like the weekend that they saw all of it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
So like it was just a bunch of people who just love racing all the time.
Yeah. And there were other series too. They had a historical series that went through. They also, I don't know what they're called, but they had like they looked like Xfinity trucks and they were jumping over ramps too.
Oh.
And IMSA and IndyCar.
Perfect.
So,
So very entertaining weekend.
yes, it looked like, so when I looked at preliminary numbers, I think there were roughly throughout the weekend around 200,000 people that went,
Wow.
which is huge.
Mhm.
So that was nice. But from a viewership perspective, there were only like 500,000 viewers on actual network television.
There was a lot of competing things. I know the Masters was this weekend.
Yeah.
NASCAR as well.
At the same time,
Yeah.
basically, because Bristol, I think, started maybe like an hour before the race.
Yeah.
But even though we got about 500,000 viewers on Fox, last year's numbers were around 300,000. So it was still about, there was still about an 80% gain year over year. So I do think that that's a good thing. While I am happy that they've grown, I still don't think that having only 500,000 viewers a race is where IndyCar needs to be.
Mhm.
I think we need to be at like St. Pete levels of that 1 million, 1.2 million. But you had the Masters, like you said. And I think this was the most watched Masters ever. So
I wonder why that is.
I think it got, I don't know nothing. I know nothing about golf, but I
Absolutely
think it
nothing.
got really competitive at the end. And so overall, we've had a 27% increase in viewership. I think it would have been higher if thermal wasn't in the mix. So while we are in the third race of the season, we're still seeing some growth potential. I still think that IndyCar has a lot of room for improvement. While I'm happy that Fox has taken over the deal, I'm sorry, but like, did they not look at the schedule and say, hey, we probably shouldn't have a race during the Masters. We probably shouldn't have a race during the peak March Madness, right? Like,
Yeah. Well, I mean, like, they just need to spread out that schedule more.
Yeah.
Because, and they had that huge gap in the beginning, right? Like, there was, 4 weeks that there was no racing. Hopefully that they'll just, correct it for next year. That it won't be such a big gap, so then they can avoid, so that they're not staggering all these events on top of each other. I mean, in the end, it's still positive. They're still in the green that it's increasing, and like I feel like you can't really expect too much of a jump. You're gonna get. I mean, it's gonna be a gradual gain of fans.
Yeah, but I do have to say though, if every race was like Long Beach with what they had available for the fans, I think that would be like, street races are supposed to be where like you're walking down the street and go, oh, what's going on, right? So I do hope that they take a look at Long Beach and start like copying and pasting it at some of the other street races, because that's a great way to get like passerby type of people. But the weekend was actually pretty fun. We had Kyle Kirkwood on pole. Another Andretti. We all thought it was Colton, but Kyle was just like, hey, I'm here.
You're right. It's okay. So an Andretti win is an Andretti win.
Yes. So our podium for Long Beach, we had Kyle Kirkwood as our winner. We had Alex Palou in second and Christian Lundgaard in third, with our biggest mover, which is Santino Ferrucci. I think he started like 26th and got up to like 11th or something like that. So he definitely moved up the field too. But the race overall, I think, was a fun one to watch. Definitely a strategy race, which was exciting.
Yeah. So what was some kind of like crazy moments that we were thinking about?
So I don't know if you got a chance to watch the new driver's eye cameras in the helmets.
Mm-hmm.
They look incredible.
Yeah.
Like watching Will Power go through a lap with just that camera, which I know they have it in Formula One, but the quality of those cameras are better than an F1.
Mm-hmm.
It was like in 4K. Like you could see the dash and see all of it and see the bumps. I think that was a really cool addition. I hope that they add those to all of the cars as well. So I think that adding that was really cool.
Do all the drivers have that, or just certain ones right now?
I think it's just certain ones. I think they're testing it out. Because it's literally on the side of their helmet. So it's like right there. And you can tell like ride heights and things like that. Because when they went to Pato, that McLaren was just like shaking. And then we went to Kyle or Will Power and it was like smooth ride. And you're like, wow, like their driving styles are different and those cars are different. So I thought that was really cool. And I do have to say the Fox broadcast was a lot better. Yeah. It was smoother. It seemed like
no interruptions,
no blackouts.
Thank goodness. Well, they didn't have to deal. It wasn't like a crazy heat. They weren't in the middle of the desert.
Yeah.
It was very mild weather, and it looked beautiful.
It looked stunning there. So overall, I think the race was fun to watch, and some of the new additions and the Fox not screwing up, which was nice. Mm-hmm. I do think that Will Buxton is getting more comfortable as well, so that also helps with the commentating. Jack looks a little bit more natural in the pit lane. He doesn't look so scared.
Yeah. The first race, he definitely looked terrified, and he was like, I don't know what to talk about, pretty much. But yeah, everyone seems to be finding their own way now. Good.
Yeah, but there were some biggest winners on throughout the race as well. We'll talk about, Kyle Masterclass. Mm-hmm. He's now won 2 times now at Long Beach. Mm-hmm. I think he drove a great race. Strategy was there. Mm-hmm. I felt bad for Colton.
Yeah, that sucks.
Again.
I know. See what I mean? Go sports.
Go sports.
I gotta just start wearing a Go Sports shirt and not say anything. But so for Kyle, is Daddy Herda, he's his strategist, right?
Yes.
I didn't realize that.
So
Daddy Herda.
Daddy Herda. So I think, oh my gosh, it was 2022 or 2023. Colton's dad was actually his strategist. So he was doing Colton's stuff.
I wonder what that dynamic is. Like having your father be your strategist, like would he be harder? Like, and like what made him change now to Kyle instead of Colton?
I think there were just maybe they were vibing too much or not vibing enough.
Yeah.
But then once Brian went over to Kyle's stand and Colton got his own strategist, I think that works. Mm. And Colton's dad he's so good at this. Mm-hmm. But could you imagine like you're driving 180 miles an hour and your dad's just like, you're doing a shit job.
Right. Like I would think that would change the relationship. Cause like, I mean, we see dads that are just yelling at their sons or daughters for that matter too, like at sports and stuff like that. I can't imagine having my dad in my ear. Constantly.
Well, Max Verstappen's dad, prime example.
Yep.
Imagine if Max Verstappen's dad was his strategist.
I think one of them, they would have killed the other one.
Yeah, it was probably a hostile environment, especially like when things get tough. And then you have to work with your dad in like a professional setting and a personal setting. I'm like, I don't know.
I can't admit like the clips that you would catch that like the comments to each other or whatever. I feel like that it's just an accident. I feel like waiting to happen.
Yeah. So I do think him being on Kyle's stand makes sense. So yeah, I think overall Kyle drove an incredible race. I think Alex Palou was chomping at the bit. Mm-hmm. That strategy, Barry Wanzer is a genius. Like that strategy to get him where he needed to be. And then he was literally on Kyle's ass. Mm-hmm. And Kyle drove perfectly. He's probably like, I am not going to have you win 3 in a row, my guy.
Yeah. Right. I think, wasn't there like a comment that like, I don't know, did someone say like, told Kyle to stay where he was at and like not to push, but Kyle's like, well, no, I kind of have to push because this dude's on my ass right now.
Yeah.
Right? Like, why are you telling me that?
And then they were like, hey, you have push to, hey, you have push to pass. He's like, I don't want to use it because I know he's going to be on my ass and I'm going to need it.
Yeah.
So I think Kyle is coming to his own as being kind of I'm not going to say co-lead, but I do think that when you think about Andretti, everyone's like Colton's the face of Andretti. But I do think that Kyle's really consistent on street courses. Mm-hmm. I think Colton's really good at road courses. And then there's Marcus Ericsson. He's just there.
Yeah, he's just hanging out for right
now. But I do think that if Colton could have the same luck as Kyle, Colton would be in the conversation with Alex Palou in 2 seconds.
Yeah.
So, but Alex didn't win.
Yeah. I know. That was my prediction that he was going to win. And all of the stats, like wasn't all of the predictions that he was supposed to win as well.
Oh, yeah.
So
he didn't qualify. He did not qualify well. I think that was the thing. I think, he qualified third. So because you had 2 Andrettis starting ahead of you, at the end of the day, you're going to have to fight an Andretti to get to the front. Now you have to fight 2. Mm-hmm. I do think that probably the quali kind of screwed him on that. Mm-hmm. But Christian Lundgaard.
Yeah.
Another podium.
Mm-hmm.
While Pato.
I know. What's going on with Pato?
So here's the thing.
He wasn't even top 10, right? No.
Long Beach has been historically not a good race for Pato or the McLarens. Nolan Siegel had food poisoning.
Yes, I heard. And importantly, he had to get like fluid up and like all the IVs and stuff like that. I can't even imagine that either.
How do you get cleared?
Yeah.
To race that type of race while having food poisoning?
I don't know.
Like, how do you not throw up in your helmet?
I know. They've had to give him like medication, like anti-nausea, something. And who knows what kind of IV fluids that they were giving him, but that's rough.
Yeah.
I don't even want to get out of bed.
Right. This man completed a clean race and got a pretty decent standing according to his sickness.
Right.
So, but Pato was nowhere to be found.
I know.
And I think I say this on every podcast, but while Pato might be the most liked and all of that, I would be shaken in my boots. You have this kid coming in from an okay team, taking over Rossi's car, which Rossi drove it well, but nothing compared to you. And he's kicking your ass and doing it well.
I know.
Like, you're disappointing Daddy Zach by not performing Pato.
Right. And he's the reserve driver too for F1, isn't he?
Yep.
Maybe not for long.
Pato has the sponsorship, and also he's the
king of Mexico City now. So
yeah, we're not saying that Pato's washed. We're not saying that. Please don't cancel us for that. But what we're saying is that I think this is the first time that someone's actually been on the team that's pushing him and that's being better than him. Mm-hmm. Since he was a rookie, I don't think, he had Fro and things like that, but I don't think he ever had somebody come in and just be like, where you
showing you up. Yeah, exactly.
So we'll see what happens, but Christian has really taken ownership of that car and really, he's driving the boots off that thing.
He sure is. He really is.
So, but there was a nice win. Stingray Rob was leading the race, guys.
Stingray Rob. Woohoo.
Could you just imagine? There's been a lot of discourse of like, what would we do if Stingray Rob got a podium?
Right. I know. Because he's been notorious for crashing. No?
Yeah.
And poor thing, I know he busted his hand last year.
Yeah. We always thought he was a Nicholas Latifi of IndyCar. But I do have to say he's racing well.
Yeah.
Which is kind of crazy to think that,
he got in top 10.
Yeah. Which is the first time he's ever done in his career. Last year, he was fighting for a leadership circle to make it to the top 22. Mm-hmm. This top 10 will help him with that.
Absolutely.
But yeah, it's crazy to think.
He got married, didn't he, recently?
Yes.
Oh, so maybe the marriage is doing him well. He's, right?
Hey, I think so.
Yeah.
He's probably
got the
less
confidence.
stressed.
Yes.
also, I think I think leaving and joining JHR was a good thing for him. New, fresh start. But, yeah, Stingray Rub in the top 10 with Kiffin Simpson, which was huge.
Mm-hmm.
Are we ready to talk about biggest losers of the week?
Yeah, I guess. Poor Colton. Well, like Colton, I saw that there was like a questionable, questionable pit exit between him and Scotty Mack, right?
Yeah.
That it wasn't contact.
No.
But like, so was it an unsafe release or what happened?
So from my understanding, everything was clean. Colton just wanted to get ahead of Scotty in the pit lane. So this is very reminiscent of, was it 2 races ago when Lando was in pit and he went on the grass to go ahead of Max? It's the same concept, but in IndyCar, you have a fast lane and a slow lane. So whoever makes it out to the checkpoint first gets that there. That's the first car. So I think what he was trying to do is he was trying to overtake Scotty in the pit lane, but he got spicy, but no one penalized him for it.
Yeah,
but
I was waiting for that.
Yeah,
I thought it looked a little shisty, but
yeah, they put him on a weird strategy, which I think kind of screwed him a little bit too. But yeah, poor Colton.
I know.
Let's see. My biggest loser was dear old Marcus Armstrong. He qualified really well. He was, I think, 7th or 8th. Felix Rosenquist was killing it in the other MSR car all during the race. And he suffered a really slow pit stop during the first round of pits. And he was also running that alternate strategy similar to like Malukas and others. And he just got screwed by it being a green race.
Yeah.
And usually I rotate radios, and this week was Marcus's radio. And let's just say he was very quiet on the radio because he was like in the 20th or something like that.
Oh, it's devastating.
Yeah. So I felt bad for Marcus. He's quick. The MSR cars look great. Felix looks awesome, but similar to Colton, Marcus just can't. That team can't put him on a good strategy to save the life of them. And at one point, is it like the driver's doing everything that they can? You're screwing it up.
Yeah.
Like and I know that alternate strategy is a gamble, but still. So that was my biggest loser.
Yeah. Oh, and poor Jacob Abel that he crashed during warm-ups. Like crashed into Colton, right? Yeah. So that's, again, bad luck for Colton as well.
Colton was just everywhere this weekend.
I know.
Yeah. As a rookie, Jacob is the only, he's last in the rookie standings. And Renus VK also struggled this week. So the coin car struggled. But yeah, Jacob's kind of floundering in the back right now. But we did have some crazy moments.
Poor Joseph Newgarden with his, what happened with his seatbelt?
So
someone was in the car during the pit stop, right? That was trying to.
I think they were buckling him up.
Oh God! Oh, so also it was not secured the first lap.
Yeah.
Oh God.
So I don't know if y'all remember, but Will Power had that same issue in Nashville last year, which cost him the championship, or to be in contention of the championship. Oh my God! And people are like, "What's going on with the seatbelts at Penske?" Hinch did make. He did make a comment. So at one of the turns, when you're turning, the turning radius is so big that sometimes because you're going so into it, you're clipping the seatbelt on the bottom and unhooking it. Some of those drivers take that turn with one hand because there's just not enough room in the cockpit
to hold the seatbelt, because they're so yeah.
So he's like, sense. The first time it happened, he's like, maybe he clipped it, but he went in a few times for it. From a safety perspective, after the first malfunction, that car should be deemed unsafe to drive.
Absolutely. Can you imagine driving 200 miles an hour and your seatbelt doesn't work?
Or you feel like
you're bouncing around too much.
Yeah. And the seatbelt is not located in an easy area where like you can do it yourself. Like it is, you're in there like as a jetpack. Like you have multiple seatbelts. So it's also, could you imagine unbuckling and buckling your seatbelt at 200 miles an hour?
No, absolutely not. I can't even imagine that at 30 miles an hour when I'm in my car. So
You're like, oh, I got to pull over.
Yeah. The cars yell at us now if we
they
do
beep
that,
at you.
so.
But I can only imagine how scary that is.
Mm-hmm.
I have a lot of questions about some of the safety calls that IndyCar has, because if that happened in like F1, I think there's regulations of like, you have to DNF, you can't race that car.
Right.
Because you can get ejected out of the car.
Yeah.
No, thank you. So, and then poor Graham Rahal, he had a false vent on his fuel system, which means he wasn't getting enough fuel into his car.
Mm-hmm.
So basically he couldn't push the entire race.
Oh.
So he had to hit this like mega fuel number. So he was just kind of just like, just driving around.
Sunday drive. Yeah.
So both him and Joseph they didn't have a nice weekend.
So overall, glad to have the regular scheduled IndyCar back, having the fans reconnect again, especially a historic race, a historic location. I think it was a successful weekend, even though there was no like really excitement, yellows, accidents, stuff like that.
They behaved themselves.
They did.
Which was nice. It sucks that we have to wait another 3 weeks before Barber, but it was a good race. And as long as we continue having non-thermal like races, I think we'll be okay. Mm-hmm. So, all right. So not a lot of news since the checker dropped on Sunday. So one piece that came out from Marshall Pruitt on Racer was around IndyCar dismisses talk of switch to independent officiating. So there was a conversation after the controversial red flag during the 23 Indy 500. And so for those of you who don't know what happened, so in 2023, there were 3 red flags during the Indy 500. The first was caused with the crash that it had Felix Rosenqvist and Kyle Kirkwood. So it's the one where Kyle was like upside down. So that was the first red flag. The second red flag was displayed after another crash. And then the third one, this is the most controversial one, was the red flag that came out with 4 laps remaining, leading to a 1-lap sprint to the finish. This has been criticized as Penske trying to make it a interesting race, because if the red wouldn't have come out, Marcus Ericsson would have won back-to-back.
Yeah.
And that was the one that Joseph Newgarden won his first time.
Yes. I do remember watching. So they talked heavily about this in the 100 Days to Indy, right? Yes.
It was Marcus was very upset about it. Mm-hmm. In my opinion, very similar to F1, like so many of these races, they don't want to end under yellow, but it's the Indy 500, having it be 1 lap and not even like giving them 2-3 laps, like really.
Right.
And the fact that a Penske driver won, little tinfoil hat moment of like, why was that happening? So because of the incident, there have been a lot of conversations happening, but about there being a separation between Penske Entertainment and then doing an independent officiating team. So they're not on Penske's payroll. And that has been completely kiboshed. So Penske's like, we're not doing that. That outsourcing race control isn't a priority because they trust the current race director. And that changes in this regard are not expected anytime soon. So,
okie dokie.
It's crazy to think that there have been some pretty spicy calls by race control. And with push to pass gate and things like that, I think having the entire series owned by basically Penske and then having a Penske team, it gives off like Red Bull Racing Bulls vibes of like
a little like just shady, borderline unethical.
Yeah. Icky
feeling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it makes me wonder, like, for that 23 Indy 500, like, if Marcus Ericsson was a Penske driver, would they have red flagged the situation?
Yeah, that's a good point.
I guess we'll never know. Mm-hmm. The other piece of news, so unfortunately and fortunately, Catherine Legg will not be participating in the Indy 500 this year.
I love her.
I know.
I'm so sad to actually that I heard that on her podcast, which is fantastic too.
So she is going to be taking her funding from her primary sponsor, Elf, to the Xfinity NASCAR series. So just a little bit of context. So it's about a $1.5 million investment to race in the Indy 500. That $1.5 million gets you way more races than one Indy 500 bid. And so I'm assuming because there were no other teams like Coyne or Ganassi that were willing to fund purchasing another car for the 500, she's going to take that sponsorship and build out a NASCAR race career, which I think having Alf as a sponsor, she's an incredible driver. She'll do well in every series. It's just going to be sad not seeing a woman on the grid at the 500 this year.
I know. But so is she going to be then the only woman in NASCAR? Yes, right?
Yes, unless someone else comes through the ranks. But yes, so she will be there, but we will miss her in our series.
Definitely.
It's kind of sad.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm kind of jealous because the Elf sponsorship, they had like a section at the fan zone last year, and apparently it was incredible.
Yeah.
And I kind of have FOMO that we didn't go last year because I would have loved to been able to go and do a pit stop at the Elf
that would have been nice
section, but it's okay. I'm happy for her.
Yeah.
I'm glad that Elf is supporting her and sees the impact that motorsports has to young women and women alike. And we wish her all the best, but it looks like we're going to have a bump day, but the field looks like we're going to be at 34.
Yeah. Okay.
So
all right. Maybe next year that she'll come back.
I know.
Please come back. Yeah.
Please come back, Catherine. We miss you. But that was it. News was pretty light this week.
Yeah.
Which is kind of nice because usually news is either non-existent or it's
heavy.
Yeah.
Like there's so much stuff that's happening.
So we'll see what happens in the next couple of weeks with news. But so far, those were the only two things that we have. So
I wanted to talk about some recent things that have been happening in F1 that's surrounding mental health. So really what inspired me to talk about mental health and race car drivers was really the Liam Lawson situation, where I feel terrible for him that he only had 2 races to prove himself. And I mean, I know he had experience from last season that he raced a little bit, right? But still how devastating it must be for him to be in the public eye, to see comments on Instagram, Facebook, whatever. And how these race car drivers deal with that.
Yeah. This could be an episode in itself about the Liam Lawson situation, but I think now we're living in a time where the drivers that we love, or even the drivers on the grid, they're all public figures. And when you're a public figure comes public scrutiny, whether or not it's valid scrutiny. And I have seen some pretty nasty things said on Twitter and other places.
Horrible things.
I'm sorry, and I get it. There are some fandoms out there that may not be the best, and that's what they thrive off of, and keyboard warriors and all that fun stuff. But going through some of the comments of Liam, of them being you know what, you're better off not even on this planet.
Right?
We're at the end of the day, they're human beings racing for your entertainment.
Right.
And they're putting their lives at risk to do that.
Yeah.
So I do think that social media has definitely impacted a lot of the drivers, even if they say they don't. Some drivers like Lando, they carry their heart on their sleeve.
Yeah. I mean, they're the millennial, the zennial. So we were not raised, but I mean, we've had that constant exposure from social media since we were young. And God knows I'm sure there's tons of studies that are happening right now of the impact of our development and mental health with that. But you can't help but look at some of those comments.
Yeah.
And I mean, social media at the end of the day is supposed to be fun, but like you say, you have these people behind a screen and keyboard and that are just, it's easy to say that kind of stuff when you're sitting on a couch and you're just a spectator.
Yeah. And I do have to say, like, I've maybe fallen victim to like poking fun at drivers and being like, oh, you're last or whatever. But maybe that's not the best mentality to have. But I don't think I've ever just felt one day to go to Instagram, go to a driver's Instagram page and go to a post and say, you suck, or you should go die, or something like that.
Yeah,
Like,
that's absolutely unnecessary.
Right?
Like it's so, it's awful. It's just interesting to like just how young they start.
Yeah.
And like, again, how does that change their brain function? Because like when you're young, I mean, up until you're like 20 years old, you really can't assess like the risk factors of what you're jumping into a car, and like, so like their decision making is already kind of like questioned, like it's crazy to think about. Like for me, even if I witness a car accident in front of me and I'm not even a part of it, it shakes me to my core.
100%.
Yeah.
There have been times where I've been driving and I drive by an accident that happened hours ago, and I get like goosebumps and the heebie-jeebies,
Yeah.
right? And I didn't even think about that concept of like they start so young and they are in such a pressure cooker situation from being 10?
Yeah.
9, 10, 11 years old. And then some of these like drivers, I think of Kimi Antonelli, or even some of the younger drivers like David Malukas, right? Like they are in a league of like, you have to perform. If you don't perform, you're out.
Mm-hmm. Well, there's like a distinct difference between F1 and IndyCar.
100%.
That like IndyCar, there's more awareness. It's a little bit more inviting environment. Like there is pressure, during silly season that they're trying to get seats and whatever that it is. But like when everyone's established, like there's more awareness about that mental health aspect versus like F1. Can you imagine like Max talking about his mental health? Like
maybe he should.
He definitely should. Like if there's somebody who needs therapy, it's that man.
Or
But,
Charles talking about like his woes at Ferrari. Like, not a lot of them talk about it.
They're not allowed to talk about it, probably, right? Because
I do also think, and I don't know this, but mental health is such a stigma still in so many places of the world. Like the first thing I think of is like, I'm a first generation Eastern European living in the US, and Eastern Europeans don't talk about their feelings ever. And some of these drivers probably were brought up in that environment of put up and shut up and do your job.
Yeah.
And deal with whatever you got on the side, but you don't deal with it now.
Right.
And they're so PR trained where I don't remember who said this, but someone said it during an interview. They were in IndyCar now, where they were in a driver development program in like F2, F3, where the teams teach you how to say nothing in 45 different ways. So that way you don't say anything during these interviews of substance or feeling or anything. It's so robotic.
Well, I think Connor Daly kind of like touched on that, because he did have training overseas. I know his dad was in F1, and he's like there's the difference between like the American mentality versus the European. He's like it's and the way, and he even talked about like how Americans are treated in the European environment and how awful that they're already walking into a bad situation.
Yeah, and even in IndyCar, I think the most recent, I don't even know if it's called online bullying, as it was worse than that, was when Agustin Canapino was racing for JHR, and I think Callum at that point was his teammate, and they would crash or bump into each other, or Callum screwed up a pit cycle, which screwed up Canapino. And millions of fans were like DMing him being like, I hope you die. I hope that you take your last breath. You're not worth the ground you walk on. You're a piece of shit.
Awful.
And then it happened again with Théo Pourchaire. Like Théo Pourchaire, like, yes, they crashed. It's a racing incident. No penalties were issued, and he got tons of hate from it. And that's one of the reasons why McLaren pulled out of the partnership with JHR, because JHR they didn't want to talk about it.
Yeah.
And McLaren's like, we don't want to support an organization that doesn't want to talk about how bullying is not okay to our drivers.
Yeah.
And Teo wasn't even a full-time driver at that point.
It's so awful.
And these drivers, like in F1, Does Lewis Hamilton really own his Instagram page? Probably not.
Yeah.
Or maybe he does, but like he probably has a team.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see who. Joseph Newgarden has what 300,000 followers. Connor Daly has what 100,000 followers. They're posting their own stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It's when you're seeing Connor's post, it's Connor.
Mm-hmm.
It's not Connor's social media person.
Yeah.
So there's even if they don't want to see it, it's there. Yeah. And when you have a bad race, I see the comments sometimes of people being like, "You don't deserve a seat. You're washed. You're, so and so is better than you. They should get the seat."
Yeah.
And even if you don't care about it, it still sits and weighs on you.
Oh, absolutely. Like, especially the pressure that you put on yourself as a driver. Like, there's an interesting interview. It's actually on the IndyCar website with, I think it was from 2023, Jewel. And she, at that time, I think Jewel was doing the national anthem for the Indy 500. And David Malukas also. So like it was a good conversation about mental health and just hearing him as a young driver. Again, you were saying, he's definitely managing his own Instagram page, his social media, of like him navigating and like getting into the mindset before a race, like what he does. And it was really interesting just to hear like his point of view of, I can't help but look at those comments. And he does look at them, but he's like, I can't ignore it. Like the toxic positivity isn't going to help me. Yeah. I know that they exist. How am I going to use those comments for me? Like how can I, and then improve my performance that way?
And it's crazy to think because that was his, second Indy 500 with.
That was the second one. Yep.
Coin, right?
Yep.
I could only imagine what he went through when he broke his wrist when he got that McLaren contract and all of the comments that were coming in of like, you screwed up, you did this, you did that. Like mental health is not even just like what you see. It's also like the anxiety that comes from it and that anxiety of pressure. Yeah. And it's very nice to hear someone at that point. He was, I think if he would have won that year, he would have been the youngest Indy 500 winner. Mm-hmm. But he was young at that point, impressionable. Yep. The fact that he's like, I have a mental health coach. Yes. To say that in an interview, I think that's huge.
Yeah. I think a lot of them did, in my research about mental health and IndyCar, like a lot of them did say that they have a like sports psychologist or a mental coach that helps them through, that like helps them visualize, visualization tactics and managing like some like their adrenaline and things like that on the grid. There was another interesting interview with Sage. Oh my God, what's his last name?
Karam.
Sage Karam. So like, and he was part of a really big crash in 2015 that actually killed another driver. Wow. So, and he went through like huge depression issues from that. And hearing him, he's like the only thing that really helped. And he actually like named the person that was his mental health coach. And this person, there was two names that like popped up. Dana Sinclair, I think is who he used, who actually has a book that I'm very interested. It's called Dialed In. Ooh. That I would like to like read maybe. And like just increasing your performance like regular people, not just sports people. So something, yeah, like that they're very open about the fact that they have performance coach or sports psychologists that help them out. I'm guessing everyone probably has one.
I'm assuming at this point, if you don't, you should.
Yeah.
Right. Because even just outside of like social media and the pressure of being a race car driver, it's also just the anxiety of having to deal with the mass public. Mm-hmm. Like the Indy 500 is its own spectacle in itself, but the fact that like you can't walk out of your trailer without being mobbed by 1,000,007 people. Yeah. And it's not like these drivers in IndyCar, some of them might do, like I'm thinking maybe like Scott Dixon or some of these big names, they have like security, but they don't. Like when we were at Road America.
Oh no, you could reach out and touch them.
Yeah. And some people, I hate to say this, but some people are weird when it comes to meeting famous or idol type of people. And I do wonder if as IndyCar grows, that will change just because it's crowd management and that anxiety of like, oh
I
my
know.
God, there's like 500 people around me.
Yeah.
What am I supposed to do? I can't take pictures with all of them.
Mm-hmm.
If I don't say the right thing, it's going to go on social media that, I don't know,
That
willpower
I'm an
hates
asshole.
children.
Right.
Like, because they didn't sign my kid's jersey when I bombarded him right before he went into his trailer. Right. So I do think that piece also is like for somebody, like for myself, like when I go to a concert and see a lot of people in it, I get a little bit like, oh, there's a lot of people here and it's uncomfy to be the center of that attention.
Yeah.
Like if I was Pato and I'm mobbed every second of every day at a racetrack.
I know you have to be a special type of person to like accept that constantly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
And imagine like having a bad qualifying, having a bad practice, crashing or something like that, and then having to do media and then having to do meet and greets with fans and stuff like that. Like I go back to my picture with Colton and I'm like, what was really going through his mind? I know he was really like, he didn't give a good smile when I took a picture with him. But so like, what was, now I'm like, I'm such a jerk that like, I should be more understanding of what's going on in your life, Colton. I'm so sorry.
I know. I think it's the concept of like, when you see somebody that's famous or even a driver that you love, right? It's just like the simple things of like, hey, would you like to take a photo instead of shoving your phone in their face and trying to take a selfie?
I did ask Pato.
Yeah.
And I was like, is it okay? And he's like, sure.
Yeah.
And I'm like, thank you.
Thank you. But I do think that there's like, even like I see this on, I think it's more in F1, like especially in the paddock, like after a race, like you have these people like running with their phone out and being like, take a photo. And it's like, sometimes they don't want to.
Right.
And at least in IndyCar, after the race, if you don't, there's no media, like unless you podium and then unless there's like a big moment.
But those are the happy people that want that attention.
Yeah. Cause was it St. Pete when Power crashed out or did something?
Yes.
And he just disappeared.
Yes.
There was no media.
Yeah.
We're like, where did Will go?
They talked to him like after the race was completed, but like he like completely left the, yes. Yeah.
Like I hate sometimes when like the pit lane reporters go up to the medical tent and they're like, okay, so-and-so was cleared from medical. What happened? And they're like, I don't
like I have I have like a beginning of a TBI, like leave me alone. You know what I mean? Yeah. That's so inappropriate. So I think this is an ongoing topic that we'll bring up, you know, I'm sure, because there's going to be issues, there's going to be crashes. And so I think we'll bring it back. We'll do some meditation ourselves too.
Yes. Always consider and with mindfulness.
Yes, absolutely.
Just have good mindfulness and don't be a bully.
No, please don't be bullies. We don't need that. So
perfect. Well, we did get a question. So our question is from Caroline from Phoenix. What is one thing from another motorsport series you wish that IndyCar could implement? So that can be F1, MotoGP, NASCAR.
I don't know. I don't know. I just think I wish that IndyCar would have that same popularity as F1. Like bringing back the series to Netflix. Well, I know we're like not sure if Fox is going to do something like that, but I think that'll bring a lot more awareness and popularity to IndyCar. So that's what I would say.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think we can't keep tokenizing Pato as the number one fan guy anymore. Like, I think we need to start really building out personas and personal brands of these drivers, especially like the Scott Dixons, the Will Powers, and the Joseph Newgardens of the world, even like Scotty Mack, for example. Mm-hmm. I also think that IndyCar could take a look at, and I know it falls on the promoter too, but having consistent fan zones at every track. Mm-hmm. Like what they did at Long Beach, incredible. What we had in St. Louis when we went to the St. Louis race, despicable.
Terrible. But that was their first run, but it was not great.
So I do think that we if I could have something, I look at other series and I wish there was more fan things to do. Mm-hmm. And it's not just like trade show style tablecloth and banner. Here's what we're going to do. So I do definitely think that would be helpful. And then let's start building out some of these brands for these drivers, especially like the up and coming ones. I think like David Malukas, right? Like, I think it's time to start thinking about like, how cool would it be if he did like a Chicago series or an Indy series or showed a little bit more of his life? Like, he's vlogging now.
Yeah.
Like, do more of that. Show people that you are human, and then give fans better merch and better fan zones.
Oh, I agree.
So.
You know what? There's one more thing.
Yes.
The colors on the cars, like with the teammates, I wish they were the same.
Like an F1?
Yes.
Okay. I do say this week was really hard. There were like 5 million red and white cars and like orange cars. And I'm like, who is who? That's like the Penske's were all red and white.
Yeah.
Can we not? I love doing special liveries, but can we not?
Yeah. Just don't go too outside of what you already do. You know what I mean? Of like just your normal, just stay in that realm.
Yeah. I like that.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you, Caroline. We appreciate your question. So that's all she wrote. So thanks everybody for listening. If you want to follow us, we are on Instagram, BlueSky, and Threads at Lap It Like It's Hot. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave a like, comment, and subscribe for more great content. You can subscribe for more episodes on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. And we always love a good 5-star rating. We appreciate all of you. And we are in a little bit of a break before Barber, and we got some fun things coming up in the next couple of weeks. So stay tuned. And as always, reach out to us if you have any more questions. We'll answer them live on the pod.
Thanks, guys.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.